I turned and began walking along the wet pavement, toward the dark servants' gate. The wind grew stronger, whipping cold rain against my skin. But I kept moving. Because sometimes dignity is found not in fighting, but in refusing to crumble. Then I heard it. A voice from the shadows. Low, steady. Familiar enough to freeze my blood. Is this how they welcome the woman who saved half this town? I turned slowly. There, standing beneath a street lamp, rain glistening on the brim of his hat, was the man I once loved. The man whose absence shaped my entire life. General Themba Khumalo. Older now. Hair touched with gray. Face carved with history. But the same fierce fire still burned behind his eyes. My breath caught in my chest. He took a step closer. His voice soft, but carrying more power than thunder. Salome. After everything you gave, you take orders to use the servants' gate? I could not speak. Grief and pride tangled inside my throat. He offered his hand. A hand that once held mine under starlight. When dreams were sweet and uncomplicated. Tonight we walk through the front door. Together. And before I could think. Before fear or shame could chain me again. I placed my hand in his. Warm. Steady. Unshakable. The man I thought I had lost forever stood beside me as if no storms had ever separated us. We walked to the entrance. Past security guards who froze in confusion. Past the golden doors carved with lions and crowns. And when we stepped inside that glittering hall, the room did not merely fall silent. It collapsed into stillness. Glasses hovered midair. Voices died on tongues. Necks twisted sharply toward us. And at the top of the grand staircase, my daughter stood staring. Her face draining of color. Her knees trembling beneath silk and diamonds. Because the man holding my hand was not just a ghost from our past. He was the newly appointed Minister of Health. They say the worst heartbreak comes from strangers. But that is a lie. A lie told by people who have never watched their own child look at them like a burden. The deepest wounds are carved by the hands we once fed. The hands we once held against fevers and nightmares. The hands we carried before they could stand on their own. My name is Salome Ndlovu. And I have lived a long life, full of pain and miracles. For 40 years I worked as a nurse in a small clinic built by hope and prayers, not by government money. I delivered babies in candlelight, stitched wounds with shaking hands, slept on wooden benches when exhaustion crushed my bones. People said I saved half the town. I never expected anything in return. Except perhaps kindness from the child I raised alone. But life does not always pay debts in the currency of gratitude. It was a cold evening. Rain tapped the streets like restless fingers. The moon hid behind clouds as if ashamed to witness what was coming. I stood in front of a mansion so large that it seemed to swallow the sky. Walls of shining glass. Balconies carved in marble. Golden lights glowing like fountains of wealth. My daughter, Aunty, built this house. Or rather, she said she built it. She called it the symbol of her rise. The proof the world would never again look down on her. She invited governors and businessmen. Celebrities and news reporters. People with cold eyes and diamond smiles. But I was not invited as her mother. I was merely an inconvenience. She came to me dressed in silver lace and pearls. Her perfume stinging my throat. Her voice low and sharp like a blade. Use the side entrance, Mama. These are important people. They won't understand where you came from. Where I came from. Those words scraped pieces out of my soul. I looked at her. But she avoided my eyes. The way people avoid mirrors that show their true faces. And so, with a heart heavy enough to drag stones behind me, the most powerful and feared reformer in the country The man newspapers called the lion surgeon because he cut corruption without mercy. And he looked upon that mansion. Not with admiration, but with recognition. His voice cut through the hall. Cold and clear. So this is the house built with the budget missing from the rural hospital funds. The crowd gasped. Faces blanched. Someone dropped a wine glass and it shattered like bone against tile. And my daughter, once unshakable, untouchable, unbreakable, folded like paper under rain. Because the secrets that built that house were about to tear its walls apart. The hall stank of panic. People shifted uncomfortably in their designer shoes. The false smiles melting from their faces like wax near fire. Music cut off mid-note, leaving only the trembling hush of fear. Aunty stood frozen at the top of the staircase. Her eyes wide. Her hand gripping the railing hard enough to whiten her knuckles. She looked at me first. Not with love. Not even with shame. But with the raw terror of someone cornered by truth. Her voice cracked, barely finding breath. Mama. Why did you bring him here? Before I could speak, General Themba stepped forward. His boots echoing sharply against marble floors. His presence swallowed the room whole. She did not bring me. His voice cut through the tension like a polished knife. I came because I heard something outside this house. He let the silence stretch. Long enough to make the walls tremble. I heard a daughter ashamed of the mother who raised her. Gasps rippled across the crowd. Aunty's face flushed. Anger flooding to mask her fear. You don't understand. No, he interrupted, his tone unforgiving. I understand more than you think. I understand the type of person who hides behind wealth. To bury the people who lifted them to reach it. I watched my daughter's lips tremble. Her eyes blazing with humiliation. The same eyes I once kissed when nightmares woke her. Oh, how far she had drifted. Themba turned to the guests. His voice commanding quiet authority. 2 months ago, the Ministry of Health discovered a missing allocation. Funds intended to rebuild rural hospitals. That collapsed after the floods last year. Murmurs erupted. Hands covered mouths. Money disappeared, he continued. And no one could trace it. Until now. He raised a folder. Thick and heavy. Marked with the government seal. The paper trail ends here. In this mansion. Aunty gasped. Her legs giving way as she grabbed the railing for balance. A man beside her, wearing a sharp black suit and hiding nervous sweat, stepped forward quickly. Minister Khumalo, with respect, this is an insult. Themba raised a single finger. And the man fell silent. Swallowed by authority. Who are you? The man straightened. Voice quivering. Victor Masiko. Chief Accountant for the Regional Development Board. Themba's expression hardened. The very board responsible for transferring those funds. Victor's smile broke. His mask cracking. Aunty stumbled down the steps. Desperation leaking through her voice. Stop this. Not here, not in front of everyone. Themba's eyes narrowed. Corruption never deserves privacy. The room recoiled. I stood rooted in place. My heart pounding like thunder trapped beneath ribs. I felt decades of sacrifice burn behind my eyes. Children I once held had died because clinics had no medicine. Mothers had bled out giving birth. Old men had gasped for breath without oxygen tanks. Money could have saved them. That money. And it was buried here. Under chandeliers. And marble floors. And champagne fountains. Tears burned down my cheeks. Aunty, I whispered. My voice breaking. Tell me this is not true. She looked at me. Really looked at me. And cracked open. Her mask fell. Her body sagged. Her voice collapsed into a whisper laced with guilt. Mama. I only wanted to give you a better life. My knees almost buckled. A better life? I whispered. Pain tearing through my chest. At the cost of others losing theirs? Her mouth trembled. You worked all your life and remained poor. I wanted to erase that. I shook my head slowly. Tears blurring the glittering hall into a watery haze. Poverty is not shame, Nandi. Shame is forgetting the hands that raised you. Themba stepped closer. His voice lower, heavier. Where is the remaining fund balance? Silence. Then Victor finally spoke. Voice hollow. It's in the house. Gasps burst like firecrackers. Hidden behind the wall of the central office. Themba nodded to security officers waiting at the edge of the room. Government officers who stepped forward. Ready to open the veins of that house. Nandi sank to her knees. Sobs ripping from her lungs. Please don't take everything. Mama, I did this for us. I closed my eyes. My soul splitting wide. I never asked for this life, child. Only for your heart not to lose itself. Themba placed a hand softly against my back. Steadying me. Tonight, Salome. Truth will breathe again. And as officers moved deeper into the mansion. The glittering hall that once smelled of power and champagne. Now reeked of fear and betrayal. Everything was about to break open. And the ruins would not be clean. The government officers moved through the mansion. Like surgeons who had found infection beneath flawless skin. Their boots struck the marble floor with sharp echoes. Their gloves snapped tight. Their tools glinted under chandeliers that could no longer hide shame beneath sparkle. Guests shuffled back. Suddenly desperate to detach themselves. From the woman they once praised. How quickly wealth loses its friends. Some turned their faces away. Others whispered viciously behind manicured hands. I knew it, money like this comes from dirt. She thought she was above us. Her house is nothing but a grave built over stolen bones. Whispers turned to blades when spoken by cowards. But Nandi heard every word. She clung to the staircase railing. Her sobs strangling the music that once filled her grand hall. Themba lifted his chin and spoke with the calm of a man who had witnessed more storms than triumphs. Open the central office. Officers pushed through double glass doors. And we followed slowly. My feet heavy as stone. The central office was a room built like a crown. Mahogany desk. Crystal vases. Gold-framed certificates. Shelves lined with imported books. Perfection. But perfection, I learned long ago, is the favorite disguise of rot. A large abstract painting hung on the far wall. Blue and black strokes twisting like a storm. The lead officer tapped it gently. Hollow sound. Behind the painting. They removed it. Slow and careful. Like peeling skin from bone. And there, hidden behind polished plaster, was a steel panel door. The room gasped. Air sucked from lungs. Themba's voice lowered, dark and controlled. Open it. Sparks crackled as metal cutters sliced through steel. Burning the air with fire and smoke. I held my chest. My heart pounding so violently. I thought my ribs might shatter. The door groaned. Metal shrinking back like a wounded animal. Behind it, stacked ceiling high, were metal cases. Each stamped with government seals. They cracked open the first one. Inside, bundles of money wrapped in labels bearing the names of rural hospitals. Makanda District Hospital. Labombo Children's Ward. St. Monica Emergency Unit. Khumalo Community Clinic. My vision blurred. My knees trembled. Those names. I knew them. I had worked there. I had watched children die there. And here sat the money that could have saved them. Themba exhaled. His voice shaking in rage he tried to bury. This is enough to rebuild every clinic in 3 provinces. The officer turned. Minister, what are your orders? But before he could answer, Aunty burst into the room, falling to her knees in front of the vault, grabbing at the money as if she could bury herself in it. Please, she screamed. Don't take it, please, I needed it. I was tired of being poor. Do you know what it's like to grow up with nothing? Her mascara streaked down her face, her nails digging into her skin. Mama, I did this for you, so you would never walk through life with shame again. I stepped forward, feeling every year in my bones. Look at me, Aunty. She lifted her face, eyes red and swollen. A broken child clinging to a ruined dream. Mama, she whispered. I wanted you to be proud. A sound escaped me. Half sob. Half the cry of an animal stabbed in the heart. I was proud the day you were born. Her lips trembled. I didn't want anyone to know you were poor. My tears fell freely. Child, I was never ashamed of where I came from. You were. She covered her face, collapsing with a shudder so deep it shook the room. The truth of the past. Silence stretched. Pain breathed. Themba stepped closer, his voice quieter now. Salome never asked for riches. He paused, his gaze piercing through the years. She left me not because she did not love me, but because she would not watch a soldier die without medical care ever again. I felt the past rush back like a storm. Blood. Screams. Bodies brought to the clinic after border conflict. The night Themba nearly died in my arms. He looked at Aunty. Not with anger, but with sorrow. Your mother walked through fire to serve this country, while others stole from it. He turned to the officers. Arrest him. He pointed at Victor. Victor tried to run, but security seized him, forcing him to the ground. And her, an officer asked quietly, nodding to Aunty. Themba looked at me. Not as a minister, but as the man who once whispered promises beneath moonlight. Salome, you choose. My heart twisted. The world waited. Breath held tight. My daughter knelt crying. Broken. Small. Lost. And I stood between justice and motherhood. The room held its breath. As I opened my mouth to speak, time stopped. The chandeliers seemed to hold their breath. Even the rain outside went silent, as if the sky itself leaned closer to hear what I would say. Before me, my daughter, Aunty, broken on the polished floor. Her palms pressed against the tiles as though begging the earth not to swallow her. Around us, a room full of people who once smiled at her, who drank her wine, ate her food, admired her gold, now shrinking away from her like shadows fleeing the sun. And beside me, General Themba Khumalo, waiting with the restraint of a man who had seen wars far worse than this one, yet still shaken. He looked at me, his voice quiet but weighted with truth. Salome. Justice needs your voice. Justice. A beautiful word. A sharp word. A word that tasted bitter on my tongue. For 40 years I held the hands of dying patients. Children who could have lived. If hospitals had beds. If clinics had medicine. If budgets had not disappeared like ghosts. I held mothers who sobbed into my chest as their babies went still. I stitched wounds with thread meant for sewing clothes. I used boiling water in place of sterilizers. I prayed over empty supply shelves. All because people like Victor. And now, I learned, my own child stole what belonged to the sick and the suffering. I had asked God many times why he did not punish such people. And now the answer knelt in front of me. Begging, Nandi crawled closer, grabbing the hem of my dress with shaking hands. Mama, please. If they arrest me, everything is over. My life will be finished. Her voice was jagged, scraped raw by panic. I can fix this, just give me time. I swear I will return the money. I looked down at her fingers, at the diamond rings she wore, glittering like cold stars. Did you think of fixing it when children were dying in hallways? She sobbed harder. I thought if I became powerful enough, I could fix everything later. I just wanted the world to respect us. My throat tightened until breathing felt impossible. Respect built on stolen bones is not respect, Nandi. It is rot. And rot always collapses. She shook her head violently. Mama, please don't let them take me. Her tears fell onto my hands. Burning like acid, Themba stepped closer. Voice firm, steady, and solemn. Salome. Should she face the law? All eyes turned to me. Officers waiting. Guests watching. The house holding its breath. Nandi whispered, barely audible. Mama. I'm all you have. And that was the moment. My heart shattered completely. Because she was wrong. She had not been all I had for years. I had lived alone. Forgotten. Discarded. Not a mother. A ghost. I exhaled slowly, feeling decades of silence tear open. No, Nandi. You are not all I have. The people who died without care. They were mine too. Her shoulders collapsed. Mama, don't do this. I closed my eyes. Pain pulsed deep in my bones. Take her. The room gasped. A sound like wind punched from lungs. Nandi screamed. A raw animal scream. As officers lifted her from the floor. She thrashed, grabbing at air, searching desperately for my hands. Mama. Please. Don't let them take me. Mama, I'm sorry. Her voice tore through me like knives. But I did not move. Sometimes love means holding on. And sometimes love means letting go. Nandi. I whispered, trembling. Repentance without consequence is not repentance. Her eyes widened with hopeless grief. Before she was dragged away. Her cries echoing down the long corridor. And then silence. A silence so heavy that it felt like the world had ended. As soon as she disappeared, the glamorous guests peeled away like insects scattering from light. Their whispers turned venomous. It was only a matter of time. I always suspected fraud. Her career is finished. Hypocrites. Cowards. Parasites. People who drank her champagne. Now spitting on her grave. Themba raised his voice. Deep and commanding. Leave this house at once. You all cheered wealth built on blood. Your silence helped this happen. No one argued. They fled like shadows fearing dawn. Within minutes, the mansion stood nearly empty. Echoing like a tomb that I stood shaking. Feeling the weight of what I had done. And what it had cost. Themba stepped closer. His voice soft. Gentle now. The storm inside him finally quieting. Salome. You just did the hardest thing a mother can do. My tears finally escaped. Streaming down my face unchecked. Was it the right thing? He placed his hand over mine. Warm. Steady. Right and easy are never the same. But today, you gave justice a heartbeat again. I looked into his eyes. Brown and deep and heavy with memory. I lost my child tonight. He shook his head. No. You may have saved her. And for the first time in decades, I leaned into him. Not as a nurse. Not as a fighter. Not as a mother broken. But as a woman who had carried too much for too long. He held me. Quiet and strong. As rain washed against the windows. Like a cleansing prayer. 3 months passed. The mansion that once echoed with shallow laughter now stood quiet, stripped bare of luxury and noise. The golden chandeliers were gone. The marble sculptures removed. The champagne fountains dismantled. What remained was only truth. Heavy, silent, unavoidable. Nandi's case moved swiftly through the courts. Victor confessed everything, desperate to save himself. But his words only revealed deeper betrayal. He had framed her into signing papers she did not fully understand. Documents that funneled money into accounts he controlled. But she had allowed it willingly. Too eager for status to ask the price. 3 years community service in rural hospitals. And full relinquishment of all wealth obtained illegally. They could have imprisoned her. But the judge saw something broken yet salvageable. And perhaps that was mercy wearing stern armor. The hospital reborn. Themba returned the stolen funds. Not to government accounts. But directly to the communities they were stolen from. I stood beside him. As bulldozers tore down old crumbling concrete. And workers rebuilt new hospital walls stronger than before. Where rusted beds once sat. New equipment gleamed under fresh white paint. Where mothers once wept in dark corners. New neonatal rooms stood bright with hope. And above the entrance, painted in deep green letters, in honor of Salome Ndlovu. She saved us first. When the cloth dropped and the sign was revealed, the crowd erupted. Not in applause, but in tears. Women I helped deliver years ago embraced me with trembling arms. Children I had once rescued from fever, now grown, lifted me gently onto their shoulders. My heart cracked open. But this time, it wasn't breaking. It was overflowing. I looked at Themba. Strength and softness balanced in his gaze. And for the first time in decades, I felt seen. Nandi arrived weeks later. Dressed not in diamonds, but in plain work scrubs. Her hair pulled back. Her hands trembling. When she stepped onto the red earth outside the newly built clinic, the villagers fell silent. Waiting. She walked slowly toward me. Eyes swollen from nights that had changed her. When she reached me, she fell to her knees in the dust. The same dust she once despised. Her voice cracked. Barely more than a breath. Mama. I thought wealth would erase pain. But I learned that running from who you are only leads you to lose everything. She lifted her face. Tears streaking her cheeks like rain on glass. I am sorry. I am so deeply sorry. If you can ever forgive me, I will spend my life proving I deserve it. I cupped her face gently, feeling the trembling underneath her skin. Forgiveness is not a gift. It is a journey. And we will walk it together. She collapsed into my arms, sobbing with the weight of rebirth. Themba stepped forward then, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. Your mother saved my life once. Now it is your turn to save others. Nandi nodded. The beginning of transformation glowing in her eyes. One late afternoon, as the sun turned the sky into molten gold, Themba led me back to the mansion. Or rather, what remained of it. The grand front sign had been removed, leaving only blank concrete. He handed me a small wooden plaque, with letters carved by hand. Not machine. House of Mercy. I stared at it, feeling something sacred rise in my chest. It has no name, I whispered. He smiled softly. It does now. And together, we fixed it onto the wall. Not as decoration, but as testimony. A home rebuilt not on wealth, but on repentance. Not on pride, but on humility. Not on secrets, but on truth. Themba looked at me then, the silent meaning clear in his eyes. It is not too late for us, Salome. My heart trembled. Not with doubt, but with peace. No, I said. It is never too late to love again. He took my hand. Gently. Like a man holding something precious. And in that moment, rain began to fall. Soft. Cleansing. Blessing the earth. We stood beneath it. My daughter beside me. Our hands linked like the first stitch sealing a wound. The rain washed away the ashes of our past. And sowed the seeds of tomorrow. And the house standing behind us, once built on stolen dreams, now stood reborn. The house with no name, now named Mercy. A house built not by money, but by truth.